What to the American slave is your 4th of July? Spoken in Rochester, New York in 1852 by Frederick Douglass. The narrator, Chazz, of Cries from the Womb.
This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. Do you mean citizens to mock me by asking me to speak today? What to the American slave is your 4th of July? A day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. Your boasted liberty, an unholy license. Your national greatness, swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciations of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence. Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns. Your sermons and thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy. A thin vow to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloodier than are the people of the United States at this very hour. Go where you may, search where you will, roam through all the monarchies and suppression of the old world. Travel through South America, search out every abuse, and when you have found the last, lay your facts by the side of the everyday practices of this nation, and you will say, with me, that for revolting barbarity and shameless hypocrisy, America reigns without a rival.
What's going on, Chazz? How's it going? Can you hear me?
Nah,
He must be having some technical
I know he's
difficulties.
backstage getting ready, but tonight's broadcast should be interesting. There he is.
Yeah. So how's it going?
All right, yourself. Go ahead. I'm sorry for rambling, but go ahead,
Oh,
brother.
no, I was saying you said it best with that information on the introduction about the 4th of July, the celebration and what it's all about. But that's really interesting because we need to hear more messages like that. You really was preaching on that one, sir.
Yeah, in fact, it was a good idea that you brought that track back out, and it's a shame. I had forgot that we had even laid that track down, but I'm glad you brought that back out. Good memories.
All right. Well, this broadcast can be seen every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time and 7 o'clock Eastern Time. We're still on our little horse here about the dangers of a society who rejects knowledge. This is part 4. So as you can see, we're just, taking our time and getting this information out because it's very important that we talk about how our society has gone downhill, our communities, just because of us rejecting knowledge by and large. Not every single person, but as a group of people, this is something that has happened to us. So before we get started, Chazz, I want to pose a question to you that you can read. And then what we'll do is we'll talk about that question, and then we'll get right into all of the dangers of a society who rejects knowledge.
Okay. Question for Chazz, myself and you. Would you say that we're living in a dangerous time due to our people rejecting knowledge, in parentheses, ancestors? I would say yes, with 1,000 question marks. This is a serious time for us as African Americans, I'll say, who have all this knowledge at our fingertips. We have all these books. We have access to the internet. And we're rejecting the knowledge. And it makes us look bad as African Americans because if you look, W.E.B. Du Bois, Malcolm X, King, all these Africans that put their lives on the line, that stood for something. And to me, it sets our identity, brother, of who we are. And when we reject that as a black man or a black woman, that shows how low you are. And in fact, when you pose this question to the black person, they throw their hands up and say, the hell with X, the hell with W.E.B., the hell with Rosa Parks. This is what some of these Africans are saying. And when you do that, that shows how low we have stooped as African-American people.
You're right, brother, because when you look at it, we're living in a crucial time, but it's very dangerous. And some of the things that we're going through now is a result of us rejecting knowledge. Because when you look at it, You see all of the crime, you see all of the other things that's going on. And we're not just talking about what the system has done to us, the people that are in high places. We're talking about us turning our backs on the information that we talked about last week, because we gave out the unity, self-determination, all of those great concepts we gave out. And it's like, we still, like you said, we have turned our backs on knowledge, and this is why we are in the predicament that we're in. So tonight's broadcast is basically, these are the results that we're going to talk about of a society who rejects knowledge. So Chazz, let's take this thing away. And what do you say? Here's one of the results.
Very important. The youth have no guidance. That is 100% on the mark. Our youth, they don't have any guidance. And I'll take it a step further. Their guidance is terrible. Their guidance is social media. Their guidance are some of these entertainers that are no good for them. Their guidance is the streets. Their guidance is gangs. All these outcomes and all these scenarios that I'm naming here are nothing but death traps, I would say, for our youth. And when they have no youth, they're prone to get themselves in more trouble. And that's why a lot of our youths are getting incarcerated at a high rate, because when they have no guidance, they're doing things that are going to get them in some serious trouble. And we as Africans need to step up and show them, when they're lacking guidance, the correct way on how to handle things.
And we have no guidance to give to the youth, because we don't know. We rejected the knowledge and the guidance and the roadmap that the ancestors have given us. So therefore, as you mentioned at the top of the show, all those beautiful names that you called off, we've rejected their knowledge. And because we rejected their knowledge, we can't give the youth any guidance. And so this is why the youth teenage suicide rate is off the charts, because we don't have guidance. We don't really care, Chazz, about anything, it seems, other than waking up every morning, getting on social media, just doing personal things. But we don't do anything that's going to actually help, because when we reject knowledge, when a society rejects knowledge, you got a lot of issues, and we don't want to come clean in that. Most of us have rejected knowledge. This is why our youth are the way they are. They already have a lot of issues just growing up, being young in this world, with all the racism, all the sexism, all of the things, the miseducation going on. There's so much going on now. And to put on top of that, when we don't give them the knowledge because we've rejected it, hey, they're out to dry, man. They're out to dry.
Yeah. It's a terrible time, like I said, in this, especially like I said, brother, when you add, like I just said, with all the social media information that they're looking at on a daily basis and intaking, it puts them in a horrible spot. And if we don't step up and intervene, they're going, and I hate saying this, but they're going to go down a dangerous road. In fact, it's going to happen quicker than we can expect it.
That's true.
Number one, ignorance, a widespread of intellectual emptiness. I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, this is basically saying when a society rejects knowledge, you're going to have a widespread of intellectual emptiness, meaning emptiness means nothing. So we don't have anything in our hearts. We don't have any knowledge in our minds. See, everything goes back to the dangers of a society who rejects knowledge. And because we have rejected knowledge, ignorance is everywhere, man. Ignorance is all over the charts. I mean, people don't want to know anything. People don't care to know anything. And this thing is widespread, and this is sad, because at this point in time, we know what we're up against. You would think that we would pool our resources together, pool our minds together, but a lot of us, we don't want to know anything anymore. That's what ignorance means. It doesn't mean you're dumb. It doesn't mean you're stupid. It just means you don't know, and we don't want to know, Chazz. And that's why the adults on this broadcast should take to heart, all of us, that this is a serious subject that we're talking about. This is nothing to play with, man. Wouldn't you say that a widespread of intellectual emptiness, in other words, ignorance is all over, everywhere you go is ignorance?
Yeah, and I'll take it a step further. We're wearing it with the badge of honor. We're wearing it with our chest out. We're walking around like some of the things you would think that would be degrading, or some of the things you would think that we would keep to ourselves. I've seen a lot of us as young men and young women, we're cocky about not knowing anything. We're cocky about not being smart. In fact, it feels like to me in this society, brother, it is a badge of honor to not know anything. That's just where we are today in today's generation.
and we talked many times on this subject matter for the last month, but it's like nowadays, no one wants to know anything because we think we know everything. And because we rejected knowledge, look at our communities, look at our families, look at our society, look at our country, look at our so-called race, look at the world we live in. We are in some serious trouble, Chaz. And I just know for a fact that a lot of people ain't feeling this because so many of us have gotten to a point where I'm going to talk about this in later on this show. Okay. There's a point that I want to talk about, and it has to do with I've often said this, our minds, Chaz. There's something wrong with our minds. And this is why most of us are dealing with the situation that we're going through, because we're just ignorant. We don't want to know, man.
Absolutely. We got a comment in the building tonight. Sister Marie says, Hotep Kings, we appreciate you. Hey, how you doing? Ain't Nuji's in the building. She says, peace and blessings, fam. Say, ain't Nuji. Brother Ray is back. He says, Black Power. What's up, Brother Ray?
Yeah, so Chaz, here's another result of a society that rejects knowledge.
Number 2, poor decision making. Choices that lead to chaos and anarchy in one's life. Now, I don't want to sound like a dead horse, but I kind of just said that a few minutes ago. How when we make silly choices, especially, and I'll take it with the African Americans, with the police. Sometimes the police may be petty. They pull us over by going, 2 miles over the speed limit or something light. And to me, instead of just being a respectful young man or a young woman and, giving them our ID and coming out of the car, doing whatever they ask, we take honor. We're going back and forth to them. And we know in the back of our minds what could happen. And instead of just saying, let me make my life easy, some people I've even heard to say, being a good citizen is boring. They need chaos. They need drama. They love something that has them on the edge. And when you have a lifestyle like that, it's going to lead you to an early deathbed. But once again, real quick, and I promise I'll pass it on. When you have a society that does not care about respecting the police, and they are wrong sometimes, you are in some serious trouble because you already know what they're willing to do to you immediately at the snap of a finger.
When you look at our lives and the decisions that we make, and I'm talking about all of us, we make poor choices because we don't have the proper knowledge, because we rejected the knowledge. We rejected the knowledge of Fannie Lou Hamer. We neglected the knowledge of Mansa Musa. We've neglected the knowledge of Bob Marley. I don't care how many songs Bob Marley did with all that truth in his songs. We've rejected the knowledge of all of these people. We rejected the knowledge of Marcus Garvey, Madam C.J. Walker, Annie Malone. We can go on and on and on. So these poor decisions that we make is because we don't know how to make a right decision. We don't have the knowledge to. And so that's what it says. It leads to chaos. And if everybody's honest with themselves, if we look at our lives are in shambles, most of us. We're up one day, we're down the next. All this anarchy, we're not one with ourselves. And all this spiritual talk, all this talk, all this Muslim, all this Islamic talk, that means nothing when you look at it. All this black talk, all this stuff that we say, our lives are in deep trouble because we've rejected the knowledge. We don't want the knowledge. We're not committed to anything. We can't be committed to anything. We want to run our mouths all the time, but we don't want to do anything. And this is the reason that we find ourselves in this quagmire that we're in right now.
Absolutely. Brother Ray Fires in here. He says the lack of respect for police is the police's fault because of the way they behave like a gang. Let me take this one real quick. Brother Ray, the police, not all of them, so let me be clear. There's a lot of police that are good people and they do their job and they go home. But there are a few bad apples that make it seem, really, really bad. But some of it is, you're absolutely right, brother. Some of it is their fault for the way they act. They got pride, they're cocky, they're ready to pull the trigger. But I want to make myself clear, Ray, it's not all. It's just a few of them who make it seem like it's every cop that's a thug or what have you.
Yeah, and when we talk about this in its context, we're talking about the dangers of a society that rejects knowledge. And we're talking about how our society, as the most part, many of us, we don't want to get into knowledge. See, that's what the subject is. And you made a good point about, some of the people in life, just people in general. But when we talk about a society that has spiraled out of control, a lot of it is because we've rejected the knowledge of our ancestors. That's what we're talking about. And a lot of times people don't understand what we're trying to say. They don't understand, they don't overstand, they don't any kind of stand. Because the bottom line is we have rejected the knowledge of our ancestors, and a lot of us are too chicken to tell the truth about it. And this is why we should be getting back to what they taught us. They wrote the blueprint for us a long time ago, but we're not interested in the blueprint. We're interested in little bitty tedious things. We want to get off track, go all down the road, do other things. When you look at it, our children are struggling. I told you about the teenage suicide rate. I tell you about people breaking up every day. I tell you about marriages and divorces. I tell you about family members, going astray. I tell you about disrespecting of our youth. I tell you about disrespecting of our senior citizens. That has a lot to do with the knowledge that we should be imparting. We've rejected it as a whole, and a lot of us don't want to admit it, Chazz. But here's another result of a society that rejects knowledge. This is what happens.
Number 3, health risks. The continuance of illnesses that plague the African American community. I'm looking at my notes here. I would say for number 3, just not caring about our lives, encouraging danger. That fits perfectly with the health risk because it is our health. When you don't care and you're always easy to act fly off the handle and ignorant, it shows your ignorance to the plagues that are hitting our African American community. I'll pass it back and let you take.
Yeah, let me take this and bring it close to home because I know you're gonna jump in on this one when I get through with this one. I'm gonna start it. I'm gonna let you finish it.
Okay.
We know that Elijah Muhammad taught us how to eat to live. He wrote a book called How to Eat to Live. Dr. Sebi, these people have told us how to live and how to eat to live, how to exercise, how to drink water, how to stay away from salt, how to stay away from all that sugar, how to stay away from all that chocolate. See, that's the knowledge I'm talking about. So the continuous of illnesses, Chazz, we're sick. We have diabetes. We have high blood pressure. We have strokes. See, I want to be real tonight. I don't want to hide behind this screen and act like none of this stuff is going on. The people that's watching this broadcast, they know that our society has rejected knowledge because they taught us how to eat. They taught us how to live. And since we rejected them, now we're all sick and taking all kinds of medicines. And you know that we're not exercising. You know we're not doing all these things. So that's the illness. That's the illness that I'm talking about. And later on, we'll talk about the mental illnesses because for some reason, it's almost like we have a block in our mind and our brain that we can't understand. We can't get down to the nitty gritty of we are in trouble, Chazz. As a society, we are in trouble. And people are sitting around here acting like everything is good. And a lot of it is because of what we're talking about. We rejected the knowledge of our ancestors. We've rejected the knowledge of our mothers, our grandmothers, our grandfathers, our fathers. We rejected the knowledge of all the people that came before us that told us what we should do. And we're acting like we're doing fine instead of being honest about it and saying, you're right, Chazz. You're right, Big Brother Jahi. We have rejected the knowledge, but we want to make excuses, you see, because that makes us look good because we think we know everything.
Right. And Nuji has a comment. She says, talking loud and saying nothing. The other comment, like you said, and she's right about the health risks. These people there's all kind of information on YouTube, Google, on, like you said, on how to eat healthy or try to eat healthy. And for us to not, take that stuff serious, and then here we go every other week going to the doctors, having to set up appointments. Keep going back every other week. And some of it is because of, like you said, we're not eating the proper foods, we're not exercising, we're not drinking our water. And especially us, we're just overtaken by some of these health risks. And I'll ask you this, brother. If there's a smart aleck that will say, because I've heard this before, well, you can eat healthy all you want because they're still going to poison everything. And to some extent, that is right, brother. How can you combat when you try to eat healthy? They're still poisoning the vegetables, or taking out the seeds of the fruits. How do you combat that?
Well, you combat that by doing the best that you can. You're going to leave this earth some way. But what we're trying to tell people is there's knowledge that our ancestors have given us. how to eat to live. Dr. Sabi, they've told us about this, but we rejected that knowledge. And that's why many of us have high blood pressure. That's why many of us have diabetes. It's not because they poison anything. It's because we've rejected the knowledge on how to take care of ourselves. And that's what the broadcast is about. And that's what you and I are talking about. But again, people want to, like you said, the smart aleck, they will get off the subject. We know that they're doing things to the food. They're doing things to our minds. They're doing things to our heart, our souls, everywhere we go. But the point of it is people don't want to come to grips with, we rejected the knowledge of our ancestors, and now we're paying the price for it, along with all the other things that's going on in the community, in the world, in our country. That's what the problem is.
Brother Ray fires in here. He says, the other problem many of us have is not expanding intelligence beyond the levels that the ancestors did. Reenactment of the same thing our ancestors did and get no further progress. So much to the point of the oppressors predicting our reactions.
Yeah, he's right. Yeah, he's right. Basically, all he's saying is the ancestors have given us knowledge. We talked about it last week on a wonderful broadcast. We talked about the principles of the Nguzo Saba, the unity, the self-determination, cooperative economics, all of these purpose. These are the things that they left us. By now, we should have taken those things, as he just said, and taken those things and catapulted those things to another level. But because we are so backwards, we don't research, we don't study, no one can tell us anything. We think we know everything. We don't want to get together with people that are like-minded, that's going to say, let's have a session where we can talk about how we can eat to live. All we want to do is watch sports, listen to music, be on reality TV, be on social media, trying to make people think we know everything, when the bottom line is, he's absolutely right. Here's another danger of the society that rejects knowledge.
Number 4, cultural decline. Many don't want to hear about their culture. Yes, and as I said earlier in the broadcast, when you look at our culture as Blacks, we've started a lot of things as far as building cars, just a lot of things our African Americans have done. And when you reject that kind of knowledge and you say, I don't think it's important, I think it's whack, I think it's weak, I don't think that it's interesting, and it kind of takes away the power that we have as African Americans. You should be happy from where you come from. You should be happy where some of our ancestors have built some of their foundation on what they've accomplished as a culture. And when you say, you don't care about it or you don't want to hear about it, that just shows that how low that we've stooped as a culture, I'll say.
I'm going to add to that, Chazz, because we don't want to hear about our culture, but we want to hear about everybody else's culture. Many of us celebrate these pagan holidays, and we do. We celebrate every pagan holiday that other people have given to us, but we don't want to talk about Maafa. We don't want to talk about Kwanzaa. We don't want to talk about building up those things inside of us to help us become better that our ancestors left for us. We don't want to talk about helping ourselves when it comes to trying to make sure we pool our finances together to own banks, to also try to get stores. The Asians they have taken over. But see, these are the kind of session that you're not going to get that much talking to, Chazz, because most of us don't want to hear about what we're talking about because we rejected knowledge. And instead of coming clean and saying, I need to go back to the drawing board, or I need to continue where I used to because I haven't done it, they're not going to bring anything out because we have accepted everyone else's culture and we go all out of the way for their culture. But you ask us about our culture. What are we doing to carry on the legacy and the heritage of our ancestors? And you're going to get pretty much nothing. That's why our children are the way they are, because we have declined culturally. And our ancestors would roll over in their graves, especially during the Harlem Renaissance, when the culture was jazz, art, music, literature, poetry. They would roll over in their graves if they saw how we were acting today, because most of us, we have declined as a culture.
Absolutely. Number 5, isolation. Societies that reject knowledge do not want to participate in personal growth and dialogue. They don't. A lot of us, like we've talked about in the past, we like to isolate. Some of this information that we're talking about today, it's not important. We don't think that we should be discussing it. And you should always want to expand. You should always want to gravitate to learn more about knowledge as much as you can. I mean, why wouldn't you as a person not want to expand yourself? And when you isolate and you're just saying you want to be shut off, you don't want to be bothered, don't contact you, don't text you. It just shows that we're in a messed up world, I would say.
Yeah, and when you reject knowledge, exactly what you just said verbatim. When we reject knowledge, there's really nothing in us. So we don't want it because of the ignorance. We don't want anybody to tell us anything as far as how to improve on certain areas of our life. We don't want this information. So because we rejected knowledge, we become like isolated, and now we're just like a ship unto ourselves. And so that's all we want to do is be alone. We don't want to be bothered. We want to be shut up. We just want to be silent. We don't want any noise. We just want to be all by ourselves. That's a sick person. And when we get to another few points, I want you to give me an opportunity to talk about some research I've done. And I figured out what's wrong with us when it comes to rejecting knowledge. Isolation is not the time. We need each other right now. Everybody needs everybody, but this is not the kind of message that we're getting, because this is why people are the way we are now.
Right. Brother Ray Forrest back in here. He says, we are caught up in this system, racism, loop, or cycle of stagnancy. Yeah, it does seem like that. It really does. He's absolutely right on that. Number 6, conflict and division. Rejecting knowledge leads to mess. Yeah, it does. Always beefing, always arguing. You look on social media right now, I guarantee you the first thing you click on is going to be some people bickering about who makes the more money in the house. Just simple things that aren't really going to improve our lives or our relatives or anything like that. And it leads to mess because it shows that you can't be civil. You can't be an adult and come to a disagreement without it being messy or loud or getting into a confrontation. It just leads to chaos when you reject most of this knowledge.
That's what happens to a society when it rejects knowledge. It leads to mess. It leads to anarchy. It leads to division. It leads to pettiness. It leads to all of those things. And this is why these discussions aren't wanted. Because of the situation we're in now as a people, we should all be pooling together, knowing that we should be able to work together and stop what's going on against us. All of the racism, all the sexism, all of the bigotry, all of the unjust economics that's going on. See, all these things going on. We know these things, Chazz, but when you reject knowledge, when we reject knowledge, all you can resort to is mess. And this is why most families are messy, because we can't have this discussion. We can't have dialogue like this. We can't put anything in with this because most of us are messed up. Now, this is the part I said I wanted to talk about. And I want to take this note, and I want to slow down now because I want to say this, and I want to say it in love, because I really mean this from the bottom of my heart. Okay. Here's a note. A dangerous effect and or result of societies that reject knowledge is something that's called mental abnormalities. Okay. What do you mean by that, Jahi? I mean that when a society rejects knowledge, we end up becoming what is called abnormal. What we do is not normal because we rejected knowledge. In our brains, there's something called neurotransmitters. And these neurotransmitters are chemical messengers that carry signal, Chazz. They carry signals in our brain to our nervous system, and this is how we make decisions. Okay. But when the neurotransmitters have been affected because there's no knowledge in the neurotransmitters, then the neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to adapt and reorganize itself to purpose itself in response in learning and experience, is shut off. So we cannot, as a people, we cannot help this discussion because the neurotransmitters have been shut off because the ancestors' knowledge has been rejected. Your grandmother, my grandfather, your mother, my father, our aunts and uncles, those who came before us, they've given us knowledge. We rejected the knowledge, and therefore the neurotransmitters can't send messages to our brain to do the right thing because we're screwed up. And this is what I've often said on this broadcast, and most people thought I was hard, but I'm telling you now, the way we're living now is abnormalities. Yeah, this is abnormal for us as a people to act this way, and for us to watch a broadcast and to not know that what is going on with our babies, with our families, with our lives, with our communities, with our nation, with our people, to sit back and act like everything is good because we got a little chump change in the bank, because we got a little job, or because we have a little car. This is killing us, Chazz. And a lot of people don't want to come clean.
Absolutely. And I'll come back to one of the comments you said, but we got a new one on the building. It says, Sister Mashonda says, you're right. We need one another. But some don't like when you try to teach them something. They reject the knowledge you're trying to give them. So what do you do then, she says?
Yeah, well, if you're giving them knowledge and they reject it, you can't do anything because they've shut you off. They've turned you off. So you just keep doing what you do. You don't force it on them because they don't want to hear it. And even if they listen to you, as they act like they're listening to you and their heart is not in, they're not. So I would say, don't waste your time because everybody's not into this. A lot of people talk about Black power. A lot of people talk about all this stuff that we should be doing, but most of them, they're not serious. They're not committed. They cannot do something on a continuous basis because, as I tell you earlier, the neurotransmitters, it's not firing. Grown men, grown women, they cannot do it because they've rejected the knowledge that's going to propel them. But in their own hearts, in our own minds, we think we're something, but we're really screwed up because we have a lot of psychological problems, Chazz. And I wanted you to take this comment because I wanted to say something else. Go ahead.
Brother Ray Fires in here. He says, rejecting knowledge with our documented facts to justify the rejection of the knowledge just based on what you think with no research.
He's right. Raymond is right on that. See, and I'm telling you now, I'm speaking out of love, but I'm telling you now the abnormalities that I'm talking about. When a society rejects knowledge, you have examples of what is called mental abnormalities. In other words, when we reject knowledge, and when we reject the knowledge of our ancestors, when we reject the knowledge of the great prophets, when we reject the knowledge of the great Muslim scholars, when we reject the knowledge of all of our ancient Kemetic and African ancestors, what happens is you have a society that deals with a lot of psychological issues. I've been saying that for many years. We are very psychotic. Mood swings, anxiety, depression. We got eating disorders, delusions of grandeur, thinking you more than you are when you're not, personality conflicts, envy, strife, we can't get along, jealousy. You know, we have some problems, Chazz, disruptive thoughts. You know, we have argumentations. This is what happens to a society that rejects knowledge, and we have rejected knowledge. And as adults, we ought to be ashamed of ourselves because we're the ones that can continue to try to go ahead and promote this. But most of us don't care about it. All we care about is a Facebook. All we care about is a phone. All we care about is some ribs. All we care about is some chicken. All we care about is a hamburger. All we care about is some water. All we care about is some salad. All we care about is some celery. All we care about are things that's not going to help us as a group. We don't have that group, that nationhood. Nobody's talking about building the nation because we're too busy talking about ourselves.
Absolutely. We got another comment in the building. Brother Angelo Fires in here. What's up, Angelo? He says, almost missed the discussion for today. It's okay, brother. You could watch where we are now, and then always you feel free to watch a playback. Brother Ray Fires in here. He says, it's so important to learn how to do proper research. Yes, and that's why I would just take it a step further. When you do research, don't just always look at one website. Look at more than one website. Go to YouTube. Go to multiple avenues so that way you have 100% of the evidence, because here's what they're doing now in this society. What he said, I'm going to take it a step further. Some of these guys and women are intentionally misinforming you because they're trying to hide the knowledge or hide what's going on. So that's why you have to do 2 or 3 pages or 2 or 3 content creators and go overboard to get the correct knowledge, because now in this society, Ray, they're purposely hiding the knowledge. So it is important to do proper research.
Go ahead, Chad. Go ahead, Chad. You're going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say real quick, when you're talking about the neurotransmitters aren't firing correctly, we can't make good decisions and things like that. I'll take it a step further. Don't you think some of that could have to do with some of the things we're putting in our body. And I'm not just talking about the food. I'm talking about some of the Xanax that we're popping, some of the alcohol that we're taking, some of the drugs that we're taking. Doesn't that play a role in the combination?
It affects all of that. Some of us can't think clearly. And so what I'm saying is this information that we're talking about, Chazz, now I know Raymond is talking about some beautiful things, and so are you and I when it comes to this subject matter, but we rejected knowledge. What I'm trying to get us to see is this, Chazz. The basic information on how to treat people. We have lost that, man. We don't need a book. We don't need a book, although we should research, as he said, and I'm totally for that. We should research and all that. But how we treat each other, we don't need a book for that. How we need to be men and women of our words, we don't need a book for that. How we should take care of those older people, that's our seniors, we don't need a book for that. How we should take care of these young youth that's going through so much right now, committing suicide at an alarming rate. We don't need a book for that. See, this is what I'm trying to say, man. Let me settle down. Let me settle down. Let me settle down.
Don't get your blood pressure up, bro.
Go to the next one. Go to the next one, Chazz. Go to the next one.
Go to the next one. Right. Number 7, a loss of critical thinking. Societies will now believe anything because they have rejected knowledge. They will. When you reject knowledge and you don't, like I just said, when you believe anything and you don't do research, you're not looking up videos, you're not reading or checking out books to further your knowledge, you'll accept anything. And that's why, and this kind of ties into what Brother Ray said a few minutes ago, you have to do the proper research on what you're looking at and make sure that you're going down more than one avenue to make sure you're getting the best information that you possibly can, especially with just basic critical thinking and the lack thereof.
Yeah, see, and this is something that we don't like to see. We don't like to talk like this. When we talk about when I say we, I'm talking about our group, African Americans, Blacks, Latinos, whomever. We don't, critical thinking is where we think critically about what is going on. We do research how to help us as a group of people. See, that's what critical thinking is about. It's about nation building. It's about heritage. It's about lineage. It's about unity. It's about self-respect. It's about self-determination. It's about pride. It's about all of those things and then some. But because we don't use critical thinking, like you said earlier, all we're going to do is grab a cell phone, go to somebody's site that we like to visit, and whatever they post, whatever they say is gold. If an athlete says something like we said last week, if our favorite athlete or our favorite entertainer or our favorite movie star or whomever, or our favorite imam or if our favorite preacher or if our favorite guru, if they say something, we're not going to use critical thinking skills. We're just going to believe it. And so this is why our society is the way it is. And this is what I'm telling you, Chazz. We're not serious as a group of people. And I'm talking about you, me, all of us. We're not serious as a group of people because we're so confused now and we've gotten away from knowledge. But listen, and I've often wondered about this, Chazz, and I'm going to let you have this, and we have some comments I want to read, and we'll go back to them, but I've often wondered this. Now just think about this, Chazz. Let me slow it down, and I'm going to ask you a critical question. Don't answer it, but just think about it.
Okay.
If you are a Christian or a Muslim or a spiritual guy or whatever, or if you don't even go to any meetings, but you study, and you're up in age now, after all those years, those things should have a bearing on your life. We still have people running to these places and they're in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, as if they don't know. It's like they got to get it. If you don't know it by now, man, there should be a time where we slack off in a sense. But no, we run to a place because we don't realize that the things that we learn supposed to be they should be put in the community, you see. All this stuff we're talking about, this should be done on the streets. But because we done got older and instead of putting this into practice, we keep running to this place after all these years and we still run into this place like we empty. That doesn't make sense to me, man.
Absolutely. And like you said, by now, at a certain age, we should have most of this information on the inside of us. But I'm going to take it a step further. I think the reason why some of us are running to those places because they're looking for a sense of belonging. They're looking to feel a part of something. And it's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing wrong with doing something positive. But I think most of the time, like you mentioned, brother, they're running to these buildings because a lot of us, and we've all been hit by this as well. We just want to be a part of something, brother. That's all. At the end of the day, that's why we keep running.
Can I tell you what the other half of that is? You're right. We do. A lot of it is a low self-esteem. Let's just put it like that. It's low self-esteem. It's low self-esteem.
I know you did.
We need somebody to stroke us. Oh, you good. Okay, I'm good. Yeah. So that makes us feel good. We don't want people like this broadcast who's saying, we got a lot of work to do, y'all. We got to all roll up our sleeves. We got a lot of work to do. We don't want that kind of language. We want the language, you're good and I'm good. Everybody's good. It's everybody else's fault. We don't like that accountability. And this is why we don't have people that watch this broadcast that's serious many times, because these kids, man, our babies are suffering. Our grandkids are suffering. Our brothers and sisters, our mothers, our fathers. But instead of us saying, I like this kind of conversation because it's pragmatic, it's practical, we can do something. We want to go to a place so people can make us feel good inside. Everybody hold hands and sing Kumbaya and cry together and feel good and go home and do the same thing next week. This is ridiculous, man.
We got a comment by Brother Ray. He fires in here. He says barbecue turkey tips will help with the emoji. He's playing around. He also says, I researched to disprove what I think. And then we'll come back to Ray's comment. But Brother Angelo fires in here. He says real information. Okay. Sister Mashonda says that's right. Brother Ray fires back in. He says people with intact self-respect treats people right. Brother Angelo fires back. He says, so now everyone is by themselves. We don't know how to give help or how to receive it. Sister Sakina fires in here. She says, we have to distinguish between what is fact and what is a person's opinion.
And this queen, she is so right, because a lot of the things that we're dealing with now is their opinions. Most of us are opinionated, and because we don't know how, you see. But you let, as I said earlier, you let your favorite entertainer, you let my favorite sports athlete, you let your favorite movie star, you let your favorite preacher, you let my favorite guru, you let your favorite imam. If they say it, that's the end of the story right there. See, and that's problematic, man.
Absolutely. Number 8, moral and ethical decline. Without knowledge and application, a society will not uphold justice, fairness, and human rights. Yeah, when you do reject knowledge, when you can't be fair, when you can't be just, where looking at a situation and saying, you know what, that's wrong, or this isn't correct. Let me produce the correct behavior. Most of the time, that's not even going to come to your head when you reject knowledge, because you're going to do the complete opposite. You're going to treat the person like crap, not think twice about it. Screw them over, not think twice about it. And just the whole moral aspect, treating someone like, I think Ray said earlier, with respect, being a good person or trying to be a good person. All that's, like I said, tossed out the window, brother, when you reject this information of knowledge.
Yeah, these are the results of societies that reject knowledge. Without knowledge and application, a society will not uphold justice. You think about this country. This country was founded upon injustice. This country bathes in inequality. This country is so wicked and evil. It cannot be fair. It will not be fair. It will not look at human rights. So since our ancestors told us what to do, we should be leading. But because we have given in to this country, we've given in to the ideologies, we've given in to the psychology. These athletes, these entertainers, many of them, some of our friends, some of our families, some of our relatives, some of our co-workers, just people we know, we've got that same mentality. So we are just as bad because we're doing the same thing. They cannot be moral. They cannot be ethical. They don't know how to be moral. They don't know how to be ethical because the way that they treated us. And a lot of us don't want to come this way because we love them so much, man. We love them so much. We love their knowledge. We love their insight. We love their wisdom. We don't want to have people like you and I say, let's teach a class, Chazz, and talk about what ethics are, what morality is, because our morality and our ethics is totally different, because we got that Afro consciousness, that African-centered consciousness that looks at every person and it wants the best for the group, whereas they got that individuality stuff where they want one person to make it and say, I got mine, so you get yours. So we're screwed up, man. Our society is, and a lot of us don't want to be honest about it, but we really have, man. We really have.
You're absolutely right.
Well, that was Sister Sakina, my fault.
That's okay. Brother Ray fires back. He says, that's why knowing God in you is important.
Crucial.
Absolutely.
Crucial. That's crucial. That's talking about that knowing self. Because when you know the deity, you know yourself. But a lot of us are still looking. We're looking for, we're what they call, we're waiting, we're tarrying, we're looking up in the sky, we're looking all around. We want someone to come and save us. Yeah. This is the mindset. And most African Americans that listen to this, they can't take it, man. They can't take it, man, because they don't want to accept the knowledge. And the truth is, we have destroyed our own families because we have rejected knowledge, and we don't want knowledge. That's why the book club that I was talking about, people aren't interested in learning. They don't want it. They're not committed. They want to be on, they want to get into a book club so they can come and tell you all their knowledge. They don't want to have anything structured where everyone takes a part and everyone talks about, like Carter G. Woodson talks about, the miseducation of the Negro. That's the book that we're going to be studying. They're not interested, and I don't want them to be interested, because if you're not serious, I don't have time for the games, man. Time is running out, man. Our kids, our youth, our teenagers, our young adults, our seniors, Chazz, it is terrible out there. And this is one of the points that lets us know when a society has rejected knowledge, what happens to them.
And I want to take this. Please let me get this one. Number 9, blatant disrespecting of elders. Now, I've said this before, but I have to say this again. I will never forget when you told me this. There was a lady. She's an elder. She asked her relative, I don't know if it was go to CVS or to cut her grass or something. And what this man told her messed me up. This man told her to S his D. Why would you say that to a lady that she needs help? She can't go out and do whatever she needs you to do. That's why she's asking you to do it. And for you to utterly disrespect her like that shows that you are low down. And in fact, it is. No, brother, it is, because it doesn't take all that. And that lady, I know she needed some help, and I'll take it a step further in this society, because social media is so bad. You see it everywhere. Yeah. Disrespecting elders is it's like a badge of honor now, where you cuss an old man out, you cuss an old lady out, push them down in their chair just to feel good, like you're doing something. And listen, our elders have paid, like they say, they paid their dues. They've been around on this earth 60, 70, 80 years. Treat them with respect. But when you reject knowledge and you treat these people like a piece of garbage, that's just low. And once again, I'm still in shock that family member said that to that old woman, seeing that she's lacking, seeing she needs help, and that was his response.
Yeah, this is what happens when a society disrespects knowledge. When we turn our backs on knowledge, this is when we talk to elders like they are buddies. We call them everything in the book. And then our partners give us high five when they say, "You told that B off, and she's old enough to be your great grandmother." This is how low our society, man. And we've learned all of this, Chazz. We've learned all of it. And so I'm asking, where are the men? Where are the women who want to sit down with us and talk about how we can do something from a group perspective? Because it's the group that's being affected. It's our group elders that's being messed up. It's our group you teenagers that's committing suicide. It's our young boys and young girls. See, but we're too busy doing what we do. We all are so busy, we don't have time to sit down and do what our ancestors did and put together a think tank. And this is what I'm telling you. One of the things that the Europeans did, I despise what they did. But when you look at power, what they did to get power, they took themselves and sat down and they came up with this concept, even though it was wrong as two left shoes, called the Berlin Conference in 1884 and 1885. It was a Berlin Conference where they divided Africa up. And you had France, you had Germany, you had Spain, you had Portugal. You had all these countries that were there. They sat down together and put together a blueprint to go into Africa and to colonize Africa. Now, it was wrong what they did, but they at least got together as a group. We can't get together because as a people, for the most part, we get angry, we get jealous, we get, and so we'll never have the power that we need because we can't be honest. And a lot of people don't like these kind of broadcasts. Because instead of them seeing that we're telling the truth to help us, they're looking at it like these guys, they just hardcore. No, it's not hardcore. Do you see what they're doing to our people? That's what's hardcore. But the mind, Chazz, when the mind is gone, then you're going to find out that's what's going on.
Brother Ray says, facts. Brother Ray also says, because he lacks self-respect and doesn't care if he looks bad. Wow. When you don't have self-respect, you can't properly respect anyone else.
He's right. He's right. And you know, that's a serious issue. And we just need to take our time. If we don't get done with this, Chazz, we can come back, because this is going to be a whole month. But this needs to be said. And to the people out there, we really love you. We do, right. Chazz and I. But we say these things because someone has to sound the alarm. It's not just us. There's other people sounding the alarm too. When are we going to get serious and talk about the things that we need to talk about? When are we going to stop watching game shows and reality TV and all these movies and all these games? When are we going to start saying we need to do something wherever we are, and so that we can help our people because of what I'm about to tell you now, what you can read?
Number 10, a persuasive ignorance of one's history.
Pervasive, yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I'll let you take this one. I'll piggyback off of it.
Sure. Because see, here's the thing, Chazz. We rejected history. Now, somebody might say we haven't rejected history because we have Black History Month. When I say we rejected knowledge, history is not just names and dates. That's fine. Who did this? Who built this? Who did that? All that's fine. But when I say we have a pervasive ignorance of one's history, history should teach us how to take what our ancestors did, as Raymond said earlier, and move it to today's society so that we can advance our people. See, history is not just about date, names, and dates. It's looking at the lessons that our ancestors went through, learning from those lessons, doing what they did that were right, and leaving the stuff alone that wasn't that good, and moving on and learning how to take our people to another level. And this is why we have ignored history. We don't know history. Yeah, we know names and dates and all of that, but I'm not talking about that. That's just a part of it. History is more than that. History should go to your soul. History should be something that when you and I get done talking about, you and I should be ready to go out here and do something that we learned, instead of just saying, you got more knowledge than me, Chazz. You good, you know all that history, but you're not doing it. You're not applying history. So history should be applied. It shouldn't just be talked about.
Right. And you're absolutely right when you said taking the information and bringing it up to date. That's something I need to work on myself, as far as what some of the elders did back in the day, trying to bring it up to this generation and help them, the younger people that's in my group. I need to do better with that as well for myself. So that was spot on. Brother Ray Fires back in here. He says, I respect others to gain their respect in return. Absolutely. It's a two-way street. You respect me, I respect you. It shouldn't be just lopsided to where you just don't respect anybody at all. Number 11, a disconnection from one's values, traditions, and a loss of sense of one's identity. Now, brother, you said this. I'm going to just take this last part. When we reject knowledge and you have a lack of identity, you start to try to adapt and take on other people's customs, other races' religion, other races' traditions, their values, stuff like that. You throw yours to the side and you try to adapt theirs. And that's low. That's low.
It really is. As we talk about tonight, this is what happens to a society who rejects knowledge. We are disconnected from our values. Like you said, our values. I'll say it again, our values, because our values are different than other people's values. But because we've accepted their values, we don't know our values because we rejected our values. The traditions that we do, most of us, all those holidays, Christmas, so-called Easter, so-called New Year's, Valentine's Days, those are not our traditions. But because we have rejected ours, we've accepted their traditions. And this is why it's so inside of us now. And now these kinds of messages and sermons that we hear, we don't want to hear them because it sounds foreign to the ear, because we haven't had a proper dosage of it. And as a result of all of that, we have lost the sense of our own identity. In other words, because we have disconnected ourselves from our values and traditions, we have lost who we really are as a person. We don't even know who we are as a person. And that's sad, Chazz. It's terrible.
Absolutely. Number 12, Erosion of community. Society ignores issues within their own neighborhood. Yeah. Now and I said this last week, there used to be a sign in the neighborhood that would say community group meeting Wednesday at 8 o'clock or what have you. To tell you the truth, brother, I don't even really hear people talking about it, like saying, they went to the meeting, this was talked about, that was talked about, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. I think when we see those signs, if they still are in our neighborhoods, we just drive right past them. I don't think they were even going to these meetings, brother. I really don't. But that is, to me, a good thing. You should. But when you reject the knowledge and say, you know what? The heck with this neighborhood. We don't care what goes on. We don't care if thugs come through. We don't care if they take over our community. We're just going to let anything happen because I'm at a point now to where I just don't care. And when you reject knowledge, that will be your response, and you will not attend those meetings. And let me ask you this real quick, and I'll pass it. If you have the time, do you think that us as a people, should it be mandatory that we go to those meetings just to see what they're talking about?
No, because that's what you just said is a problem right there. You're a spy. You're not going to be serious. You're just going, like you said, to see what we're talking about. So I don't want you around. If you're just there to spy, get your butt. Don't come up in there. You don't mean any well. Your heart is not right. You're coming to see who's there, to see what they're talking about, and to take it out and to be messy. So no, don't even show up. This is what I'm saying. We got to have this attitude. There were a lot of people that came before us, man. And we have to acknowledge, like Abu Bakr II. I mean, he was the one who took all these ships and left Africa, Mali, and came all the way to different parts of the world and didn't make it back. That's how Mansa Musa became the actual Mansa Musa, the Musa of Mali. So what I'm saying, that should teach us we should be willing to go out. We should be willing to sacrifice. We should be willing to be challenging. So those are the lessons that we should learn, you see. And again, our communities have eroded, Chazz. They have eroded. And most of us watching this broadcast, we can sit there, we can act like everything is okay. But if you look at what's going on with us right now, the alarm should have been sounded. But because we don't see that, because we got our cell phones, we got our little televisions, we got our little Rokus, we got our Spectrums, we got all these things, we're satisfied as opposed to saying we need to continue to talk about these things. And this is what we should do. I want to make a quick announcement. This Friday at 7 o'clock, I believe, the Jahi and Kev show is going to come on. I'll put the emblem up here. The Jahi and Kev show. We're going to be talking about equality. And this is going to blow a lot of people's minds. You can get us on YouTube. It's the Chazz and Jahi show. It's going to be this Friday on YouTube. So you can just subscribe to our channel. But you're going to be surprised. And I'm going to tell you the problem that we have, because I'm going to be unleashed on that show, because I'm going to talk about, me and Kev and we're going to talk about how where we messed up at is that word right there, equality. That's dangerous. We shouldn't want to be like other people. Now being equal as human beings, yes, that's one thing. But as far as equal with other people, we can never be equal with them. They have everything. They own everything. So how can we want to be equal with them? They've killed people all over the world. They've gone everywhere and decimated people. So why would you want to be equal? See, these are the things that we must talk about. And I don't want to keep beating that horse, but this Friday, please tune into the Jahi and Kev show. You can even call in if you want to. This is what men and women do, man.
Number 13, a lack of purpose and direction. Exactly. When we talked about this a little bit for our youth earlier, when they are just in general, when you lack purpose and you lack a direction,
you're done, man.
And you reject knowledge. Yeah, you are, because like I said, you're going to go off and start doing things you have no business doing. You're going to get a lot of negative attention. Some people get hemmed up by the police. You have to have a purpose. You have to have a direction, because if you don't, 9 times out of 10, and I hate saying this, and I'm not cocky about saying this, you're going to end up in the paddy wagon going to the police station because of something stupid that you've done, because you're just looking for something to get involved with.
Yeah, that's true, man. We time it's fled. It's 59 minutes. We're just about done. But we want people to come back tomorrow, because we still got a lot more to say. I just hope we can encourage you to be serious about what we're talking about. Those who are interested in the book club, you can email me at my email address, which is the jahisaze@gmail.com. We'll give you more information once you do that. But I'm telling you now, don't email me if you're going to come to this book club and you're thinking that you're going to take over, dominate, and control and talk for an hour to tell people what you know. Please don't email me, because we will not accept it. And if you do be a part of it and you start that, you will be kicked off and blocked. We don't have time for this anymore, Chad. We have to do things in decency and in order. And that's the problem. We're reading the book, The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. And he also tells us about what has happened to us when we reject knowledge, because that's what's going on. And that's the problem that many of us have.
Brother Ray fires in here. He says, adults with nothing to do gets in more trouble than a child with nothing to do. He's right on that.
Chaz, and we're going to leave you. I'm going to let Chaz have the last words, but I want to leave you with the very poem that he read by Frederick Douglass in the 1850s when they asked Frederick Douglass to do a speech about the 4th of July. I'm going to let you see what Chaz and I did. If you can stick around that long to listen to a 2 or 3 minute speech, it's beautiful, but the words are powerful. But this is what I'm saying, man. A lot of us are just microwave people. If it's not in 2 or 3 seconds, we don't want to have anything to do with it. So again, the Queen says Shimhotep. We say to her Shimhotep. That means she wants us to go in peace. Chaz, give us the last words, and then we'll play the piece from what you did maybe a few years ago about the 4th of July, quoting Frederick Douglass' speech. So please, everybody, stay tuned. Chaz, take us away.
Tonight was a good broadcast as always, and I always like to shout out to Sister Sakina, Sister Mashonda, Brother Angelo, Brother Ray, Sister Marie, and Nuji, all the people who tuned in for an hour some change that stuck around and gathered information about this broadcast. We appreciate it. But tonight was a simple discussion about the dangers of society and when people reject knowledge, what it leads to. Why our society is the way it is today, because we're choosing to be ignorant. We're choosing not to research. We're choosing to be just in a state to where we want to be isolated. We don't want any knowledge. We just want to be left alone. And that's not the way to be, especially in these kind of times. We also touched on the youth, how the youth are starting to get into more trouble, how the youth doesn't have any guidance, any hope, any plans. And us as African Americans, if we see that and choose to look the other direction, that just shows you yourself. You don't even care about your own people. And we have to do something about this if we are serious. Next week, we're going to come back, touch up a little bit more about this topic. And that's all I have to say on tonight's broadcast, brother. I appreciate you for having me on.
All right. We'll see you guys next week. But on our way out, please listen to this piece by Chazz and Jahi from Cries from the Womb. It's the speech that Frederick Douglass gave. I'm sure you'll glean some insight from it. So Chazz, we'll holler at you next week. Here it comes.
Take care, everybody.
What to the American slave is your 4th of July? Spoken in Rochester, New York in 1852 by Frederick Douglass. The narrator, Chazz, of Cries from the Womb.
This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. Do you mean citizens to mock me by asking me to speak today? What to the American slave is your 4th of July? A day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. Your boasted liberty, an unholy license. Your national greatness, swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciations of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence. Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns. Your sermons and thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy. A thin vow to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloodier than are the people of the United States at this very hour. Go where you may, search where you will, roam through all the monarchies and suppression of the old world. Travel through South America. Search out every abuse. And when you have found the last, lay your facts by the side of the everyday practices of this nation. And you will say, with me, that for revolting barbarity and shameless hypocrisy, America reigns without a rival.